Okay, I unmuted myself. That was almost a mistake, gang. Always, 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 as a streamer, you gotta check, are you muted? Okay, sometimes the answer will be no, but more often than not, the answer will be yes. Okay, so you gotta check that. Almost made a rookie mistake. A rookie mistake. How is everyone doing today? How are you, my dear audience? Cernus, Redeem, sing a song. What song? What song am I singing? Sing a song. Sing it loud. Sing it strong. Okay, there you go. That's the song for now. Because I can't think of one. Okay, today, what are we doing? What are we talking about? What are we going over? Well, today, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, lords and ladies, what we will be talking about is the group chat leaks. Dylan Bowser, nice to see you. At least I didn't leak the Whick group chats. That's because I have proper OPSEC, okay? I take better care of my private information than Hegseth, Waltz, and all these other chucklefucks do with theirs, okay? Let's be real. I would make a much more secure and better Secretary of Defense than this weirdo, okay? First of all. But yeah, and also far less classified information in my group chats. I promise you. Okay. Far less governmentally classified information. Zephyr Hash says, Wick L, why do you hold Pete Hegseth and the other guy to a higher standard than you would yourself? What are you talking about? The other guy. Off a topical says, calling it now. It's going to be whataboutisms as far as I can see. If anyone is dumb enough to defend this. Oh, probably. Alex Kirsch, nice to see you. Again, hi, often topical. Hello, hello, hello. What are we doing today? Well, yes, today I'm giving space, first and foremost, to those who want to call in to talk about the Hegseth group chat leaks. Specifically to people who think it's not a big deal, I'm overblowing it, this is something that is being oversold. They did have the committee hearing on the national intelligence today, right? Where Tulsi Gabbard, Radcliffe, and I think there's a couple others were there to answer the committee's questions on the state of our national intelligence. And oh my, it went about as you would expect. Tulsi Gabbard embarrassed herself, frankly, with her answers were non-answers. They were dodging. She didn't even admit at first to having been in the group chat. She wouldn't admit to having been in the group chat. And we have some other answers. John Radcliffe, I think, gave the worst answer. When Ossoff asked him, wasn't this a mistake? Wasn't this a huge mistake? John Radcliffe said no. And we got clips, okay? So we're going to go over it. Things like that, right? But primarily today, the purpose of today is, again, for those of you who think that I'm just making much ado about nothing, please, I would love, love, love to talk to you. I'll be giving you, give me 1 second. Invite. Oh, come on. When I can find it, my server link. The link to my invites to my Discord. Here. Give me 1 second. I'll get it. And then you will click the link. Okay. You will click the link. You will accept the rules by clicking on the little face emoji. Okay. And then what will happen is you will go backstage. It's at the top of the chat. It says backstage. It's a voice chat. You will jump in there. And once you're in there, I will pull you in and we'll have a chat. Okay. And I'll match your energy. Okay. So if you come in swinging, I'll swing back. But if you come in with courtesy, you come in correctly, I'll be correct with you. And we'll have a cordial discussion on this. But I will say, I do feel very strongly that this has been a disaster for our national security, that this is indicative of incompetence on the part of those in the administration that were involved. And furthermore, I am officially calling for the resignation of 3 individuals at least in this whole whatever this is, right? This whole cluster. I am calling on the resignation of Pete Hegseth, who, in my view, mishandled and inappropriately shared highly classified information on war targets in a insecure group chat where he had not verified the identity of all the members. 2, Michael Waltz for inadvertently, I don't know if he did it on accident or who he thought he was inviting precisely, but inviting some random reporter into a situation where there were these high-level discussions, again, without letting anyone know who he was, right? Without any verification of who he was. He simply just invited him to a group chat, and the guy stayed there for a few days at least. That the level of incompetence, right? The level of gross incompetence that implies is wild to me. And that should be career ending. This person, Michael Waltz, for doing that, should lose their job. Just clearly. That's 2. The third person, I think, that should be handing in their resignation is John Radcliffe for, again, according to the reports, revealing active CIA agent names in an insecure group chat. Highly, highly, highly sensitive information. Highly, highly, highly dangerous that this would get out. And he was doing it in a group chat that was insecure where not all the members were verified. So those 3 individuals, at the least, should be handing in their resignations today. Will they? Doubtful based on the responses so far by all the individuals involved. Okay. Now, to be clear, I haven't heard much from Michael Waltz, but I have heard from John Radcliffe in the meeting, and I have heard from Pete Hegseth in clips and other things. And Hegseth is denying that any classified information was shared. Tulsi Gabbard, her line is that, well, we didn't actually share any classified information in the text, in the group chat. But again, this is clearly bullshit, okay? I believe the reporter in this case. The reporter has given what I feel to be compelling evidence that he was in the chat. He has also provided confirmation that the White House has confirmed that the chat chain that he sent to them was legitimate, that he was actually there. And again, if there was no classified information, then Tulsi Gabbard should have no problem authorizing Jeffrey Goldberg to share all of the logs. But she won't do that. And she refuses to do that. She refuses to do it even with the committee because, in her words, these are sensitive, again, too sensitive, and it's not appropriate to talk about in the committee. And yet, they gave this information, right, inadvertently, to a fucking reporter. $5 for Zephyr Hash. Whick, The Atlantic is a failing magazine, so even if their whole staff is in the group chat and leak everything, nobody would read it. Mr. President said so. Oh, we're going to get to Trump's responses, too. It's crazy shit, okay? But yes, if, once again, because this is the reason I'm doing this stream today, is to give everyone a chance to come talk to me. And we have a taker, okay? We have a taker, someone to come in. Hello, you're live.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going, man. So, what do you think? So, again, what's your take on the leaks, man? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And is it just going to be us then?
Well, it's call-in, so as people come in,
fantastic.
you can call in, we talk, and then we let you
I have
go
a written statement, but I'll try and get to the gist of it real quick, which is that setting aside the history of the you're concerned about the Whistleblower Act, right? Or are you just in general?
So my concern with the leak, okay, my concern with the leak isn't about the Whistleblower Act or anything like that. So my concern with the leak is that this was a unauthorized place to share highly classified information and they were doing so in a place where not all the identities of all involved were not verified. It was insecure. And again, according to the testimony today, which we heard, it's highly likely that many of them were using their personal devices to do this, which is, again, a huge security risk. So those are my big problems with how this was handled.
What is it a security risk from?
So one of the reasons that you don't use your personal devices, especially if you're overseas or abroad, is because regardless of how secure the messaging app is, your phone is significantly less so, especially if you are in a foreign country where they have devices, agents, and stuff that can actually hack your phone itself, and they can simply pull the messages off of there. When I have traveled abroad, right, I've been warned specifically, right, that not to use any, or not to be aware that foreign agents are likely going to tap my phone while I'm there. That is a likely occurrence to happen. And again, this was when I was in the military. Probably less likely for some civilian dum-dum, but it's not entirely off the table. And these are high-level officials.
So yeah, let me get to kind of like the gist of it. I mean, yeah, and that's kind of like the gist of where we differ is that there's too much classification, there's too much unauthorized information.
Wait, hold on, just real quick. Do you think that so it was alleged that Hegseth shared, again, prior to the strikes, shared targeting information, shared weapons packaging information, shared strike packaging information, and like where the planes would be, when they would be there, etc. Do you think that information deserves to be classified?
I do not believe that harms United States international security.
Why not?
National security.
Why
I think
not?
that specifically all it does in this specific strike is an international security issue that in the text themselves that we've seen, and we haven't even seen all the information, is that the people in charge were talking about international security and specifically the security of Europe. I believe that the United States has a job in international security and we have our place in there, but I don't believe that is privy information that would be excluded from this high bar of
when the
of censored
specific
information.
classified, we'll get to that in a moment because there is something to be said there. I think that's sensitive information, but that's not necessarily classified information where we have world leaders discussing whether or not they should respond to something. I think there is a good argument to say that kind of conversation should be private, and it should be very private for a reason. I think world leaders, adversarial leaders, would kill to have access to a discussion between the vice president and the secretary of defense on whether or not we should carry out a military operation against a potential target. The reason we don't want these conversations to be known
if they're involved.
Yeah, if I may. The reason we don't want those conversations to be known about, right, especially not by our adversaries, is because just knowing that there will be a possible target allows them to make moves. It allows them to prepare defenses of these potential targets. It lets them know we're coming, and that's not something we should do, right? Now, after we've made the decision, there might be good arguments to say, well, we should let them know in advance so that civilians could evacuate and things like that. Fair enough, and we can have that discussion. But when the discussion's being had whether or not to act and in what way we should act, that information is highly sensitive, and I think that we should keep that information private. Do you disagree?
To some parts, yes. I think we agree on the civilian evacuation. I think that whether it be journalists, whistleblowers, or an accident, this is the people's information, and like we have the right to the information, whether or not someone stamps it with top secret, classified, or your mom's picture. Okay, like it's our information, and I
Do you
do
think,
understand,
sure, do you
like,
think,
the
if I may?
specific.
Oh, finish.
I can specifically hone in right here. Specifically, when like nuclear and radar technology is given to the Russians with the hope of them profiting via war and profiting as our adversary. Yes, that is a case of of arising to, yeah, that needs to be private, and we needs to go after them prosecutorially or get resignations, etc.
So, do you think that the public has the right to know where our planes will be when they strike a military target and when they will be there? Do you think the public has a right to know that?
Yes.
Okay, I fundamentally
I don't think
disagree.
that they. I don't now. So I think that this is along the lines of governmental trade secrets, and it's not that the government should tell the people. It's that the government, that's their duty to put up shields, and if they decide, or if they even drop the ball, like say like George Washington's papers gets like washed away and he can't secure them all, I'm not going to prosecute George Washington for that or any of the subordinates for that.
Hold on.
And I think,
Do you think that the government has a duty to protect its service members, the lives of its service members, to the degree it can? Do you think it has a duty or responsibility to protect a soldier, an airman,
I think
a marine, etc.?
So the duty of those soldiers, and
no, the government to the soldiers. To be clear.
I understand. 1 second. The duty of the soldiers is to give their life for for us, for civilians, for the Constitution, for our nation, etc. I'm just looking to find it. That's why I'm stalling, actually. Let's see. I type in war, and I should be able to find it. Yeah. So, yes, we have a duty to be as low casualty and prone of a Department of War as possible, but we also have to be the most lethal. And
I don't disagree on that.
Okay.
Huh?
And I think part of being
again,
the most lethal is being also diplomatic. And whether that's...
I'm not against diplomacy.
Showing...
Hold on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I don't disagree with being diplomatic. I think diplomatic is good. But my question to you is, does allowing the public to know the precise time, method, and location of our strikes and where our men and material will be during those strikes make us more lethal or less lethal, in your opinion? Or does it have no effect?
It would depend.
Can you give me a situation where you think that knowing the precise location and time of a target where we are making an airstrike?
The nukes?
I mean, how would that make it more lethal?
The situations where literally civilian evacuations are taking place?
Okay, when we say evacuate this area, we don't give, usually, unless it's a specific military combat target in which we might, right? But we still don't tell them our angle of attack. We still don't tell them the precise time of the attack. And we still don't tell them what munitions we will be using in that attack. Not normally. You can find outliers to a situation where we might tell them the munition just to showcase the gravity of what is about to happen. But we would never show them where we are going to be attacking from and where our planes will be. And especially not precise timing.
So I think we would obviously both agree that, like, the more information somebody that you're attacking has on you, the worse that is for you as an attacker.
Yes, it puts the lives of those who are engaging in that attack in danger. If I were to tell, if Hegseth's targeting information, right, that he released in the group chat allegedly, were to get into, if I may finish, right? If Jeffrey Goldberg had sent that information to the Houthis, it would increase the risk of American casualties manyfold. Okay? That is why we keep this information private. That's why we don't share classified information in insecure spaces, is because the old adage, loose lips sink ships, is very, very pertinent. And it's very, very true. We do not give anyone, right, the public, this kind of information because it increases the risk to our soldiers who are already putting their lives on the line. There's never going to be zero risk to an operation. That's just not something that will ever
Yeah,
happen.
that's a good
But
point.
we can mitigate that risk to the ability that we can. And one of the ways we do that is through operational security, or OPSEC, as they call it.
Okay, absolutely. OPSEC's neither here nor there.
No,
But that would
OPSEC
be
is
an intentional.
OPSEC is the whole thing, man. The
I understand that,
operational
but
security is why this is a huge, huge
my
issue.
entire thing is against OPSEC, though. You understand that? My entire principle is that
Is you
like,
don't think
OPSEC
OPSEC is moral?
no, I no, I think it's like necessary. I think there's not a morality to it. I think it comes down to what is the people's rights, right? And what
I don't think we have a right to know exactly and precisely where our airplanes are at all times.
so we have a right to their safety, right?
Yes, the government has a duty and responsibility to protect its citizens and protect its soldiers to the best of its ability. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And that also would extend. Okay, let me find it again though.
So, do you think?
So when they spill,
Go ahead.
so when they spilled either Yemen, like I think I might just have to just read my statement, even though it's like
you
a
might
5-minute
have
kind of
to.
statement.
In 5 minutes, cut it down to one.
Okay, I
cut
do
it
have
down
to
to
admit,
one. Read your statement.
I can't cut it down to one. So
okay, well, how about this then?
just,
I will say this, okay? Before you read your statement or we do any kind of manifestos.
Real quick, can we both agree though that the leaks at least don't show an indication of intent to distribute to a foreign adversary?
No, I don't think this was intentionally leaked. However, I do think it was grossly negligent, which I think is also worthy of It's career ending. Frankly, it's career ending negligence on because it's treating the lives of our soldiers with
I think
disdain.
So I would agree with you for the average person, but that's not how it's applied, unfortunately, right? And I think we either need to take two stances. Either it's applied just like the airmen who shared stuff in Discord, which I don't really understand how that's privileged. And the thing is that the law and the way that it's adjudicated, the jury can never know about that information either. So we're left in the dark for like 50 plus years until they like time limit it, like declassifies like executive documents because of like some law that says that it's like
again, we're not talking about technology blueprints or anything like that being shared. What we are talking about is again something that is time sensitive. If I may, it's time sensitive because they are giving precise times, locations, and armament
like
of a blueprint is how something is built. Okay, it's how something is put together.
A war plan is how a war is built. An attack plan is how an attack is built.
We are talking, right, about something that is time sensitive and increases, if it is to be known by our adversaries, the dangers to our airmen, to our servicemen, manyfold. Again, I believe that Hegseth and Waltz and Radcliffe acted, at least them, right? And I think everyone in that group chat deserves some criticism, right? I give it less to those who did not share private classified information, right? And they simply stayed silent as it was shared. That's still bad, but I don't think it rises to the level of those who were actually sharing classified information, such as, again, as I said, in the case of Hegseth, operational strike information, and in the case of Radcliffe, sharing the names of CIA assets that were active in the field, which, again, had the adversary known their names, puts them in huge amounts of danger. So I guess I would just ask you, do you not think that that if not resignations, what would you have happened to the people involved, if anything? If not resignations, what would you have happened to Hegseth? Let's use that as an example.
Nothing, because I don't know what the rest of the
Nothing.
information is.
Okay.
Like, and so, like, this goes to, like, the end of what I was going to say. I can sum this definitely within a minute.
Okay.
Is, like, a journalist's, like, job and duty, like, I respect the caution, but, like, he fails in his, like, first democratic duty, which is to, like, actually explain what this stuff is and release it and to show us. And, like, I
So
don't see this
do you mind
verification
if I read what he wrote?
Sure, yes, but, like, reading what he wrote isn't what is in it.
Well,
I'm ready. Go.
okay. At 11:44 a.m., the account labeled Pete Hegseth posted a signal, a team update. I will not quote from this update or from certain other subsequent texts. The information contained in them, if they had been read by an adversary of the United States, could conceivably have been used to harm American military and intelligence personnel, particularly in the broader Middle East Central Command's area of responsibility. What I will say, in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of this signal conversation, is that Hegseth Post contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing. Now, the reason that this is important not to share, even now, to the public, is when you share the, say I put out.
Yeah, but you get the operational ideas.
There's more to it. A moment, please. Let me explain, because this is important to my audience. If you might understand it, but my audience might not. So allow me the moment, please. So the problem here is that if I say, reveal that we have X information on this target, okay? We know that it's staffed by 12 people. We know it has 3 stories. We know that one of the people leaves the door open every day at 6 a.m. to take a smoke break. Knowing that we know that information, what the adversary can do, it can reverse engineer it. And they could use what we know to figure out how we came to the knowledge that we have, which puts human assets that we may have used to gather the intelligence at risk. It also makes it harder to gather similar intelligence in the future, because they can potentially figure out how we are gathering our intel and put forth measures to combat us, counterintelligence, right? And all these things pose a risk to our operational security in the region. It's not just, right, this specific target, but it threatens our intelligence gathering in general. And I think Jeffrey Goldberg was right not to make this information public. He did give enough information, in my opinion, and you might disagree with me here, but he gave enough information, which was, again, corroborated by the White House, to show that he was in this chat. He, again, made it very clear the parts that he did give screenshots of the non-sensitive information, or the non-threatening information, right, that he could, to verify that he said, which I think gives him credibility, it gives him credence, and it gives him believability when he says that this is classified, dangerous information. Now, I agree, we should have an investigation into this, right? We shouldn't just take him at his word.
The Congress did very well getting them like that quick in front of the principal's office.
Well, the committee was planned in advance. This was the committee was planned weeks in advance. This was released. Well, you say but obviously this was released by Jeffrey Goldberg prior to the committee in order, right, for them to be set in front of the committee and heard. I don't think that was inappropriate for him to release in timing as he does.
He should release the logs of his vetting process.
He can't.
And that would make
the vetting process. What do you mean?
Yes, of his vetting process, he could, of who the other journalists he talked to, and like redacting, like he should release more logs. And like my only response to basically that part is that I just can't make a determination.
What is preventing you from making the determination?
Has Goldberg ever worked with classified information before?
No, but he did talk again in the report that he did release. He did mention that he did talk to people who have.
That's good. Show me who. At least what, like.
You want names? Okay. I
want.
don't know why that would be bad, but
I want, if you're showing me like any of the logs, and it's the logs of them talking about like messing with the Europeans or like
yeah,
degrading the
I don't care
Europeans.
too much about that.
Yeah, but like that's the only logs I've seen, you know?
Do you if you had to put money on it, okay? You had a cool $20 bill with Andrew Jackson's face on it, okay, right? And you were like, okay, I'm gonna bet money whether or not he's telling the truth about the classified information, based on the details that he has released publicly, the details that have been corroborated by the White House. How likely it is? Where would you be putting your $20? That he's telling the truth, or that he made it up?
Don't bet, kids. It's bad for your health. Probably on the I don't know. Where's the like
Okay,
specific
I
number?
think that you are being
No,
overly
they
skeptical.
don't know. Yeah, sure. I'll take that.
And I think that
I'll
this
take it gladly.
is preventing you from processing the information properly.
I don't have all the information, Whick.
You don't need all the information. You don't need complete and 100% information to make inferences based on incomplete data. We do this all the time. I don't know for certain exactly how much gas is in my car, but I have incomplete data that I can make an inference that there is some gas in my car, okay? And we can make a decision based on that. And we do this all the time, and I don't think that's wrong to do. Is there anything else that you have an issue with?
A whistle blown cannot be unblown, but apparently we can see here it can be half blown. So journalists, do your job. Give us enough to judge. I don't think this arises any to the. I think we agree this doesn't arise to any of the point of intent. So that honestly does throw away like half of the stuff that I wanted to say. It's small potatoes. I don't think harm can be really proved in this specific case. It's protecting European assets mainly, or maybe even Israeli assets. And I think
hold on, you
having
think
such a
what
particularly
is protecting Israeli assets?
Because that's like what the Houthis are targeting, like explicitly. What?
What do you think his reporting is doing? Do you think his reporting specifically...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the strike itself. Like the strike, like the topic of the strike itself.
The strike itself is tangential to the discussion about the leaks. You understand that, right?
It's
whether you believe that the strikes were justified or the strikes were not justified is a separate question. Then should we be providing...
the topic of what is released is strikes on terrorists, right? It's not a foreign national adversary, it's terrorists.
We still should release information on when and where and how we're going to strike terrorists.
Journalists during the Gulf War and the War on Terror.
Okay, journalists reporting something as it happens is far different than a journalist having access prior to a strike and then reporting on that information before the strike, showing where our troops are, where our troops will be, and what munitions and loadouts that they will have. In fact, many reporters during the Iraq War got in trouble because they were inadvertently reporting the location of our troops, which put them in danger, right? Reporters who are embedded with soldiers are not supposed to do that. You okay? Okay. But regardless, finish your statement. But yeah, I don't think that the who is being struck here is the relevant bit. I think what the relevant bit and what makes me angry and what I'm very concerned with is how this demonstrates incompetence and negligence in handling what I feel is very sensitive classified information.
We'll see if aliens and extra dimensional stuff gets leaked, honestly. That's what I'm waiting for. But secrecy is tyranny's cradle, so with that, I'll peace you out.
Peace out. What are we thinking? Any other takers? Again, what we're doing today, okay? What we're doing today is I'm inviting you, and because I've I've had quite a few people talk to me about this in on Twitter and in Discord, okay, who have told me that this is a nothing burger, that this is being overblown, that this is something that we shouldn't be concerned about, or it might be bad, but it's not really that bad, okay? And we're making mountains out of molehills. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm inviting them, all of them, and anyone who disagrees with me specifically, to come on my show and talk to me about it. And you just saw my conversation here. If you come at me correctly, I'll be very cordial with you. I'll be polite. I'll disagree, but we'll be polite. If you come swinging, I'll swing back, right? That's the rules. That's how we play. But if you want, again, I will provide the link. You click on this link on my Discord, okay? You click the link here. You accept the rules, and you accept the rules by clicking my face emoji. There'll be a little emoji of my face with a beard. Yeah, you click that to accept the rules. And then you jump backstage. It'll be the voice channel at the very top of the Discord. And once you do that, I will pull you in, and we will have that conversation. No, Cal Mike says, that caller set the bar pretty low. Other stupid callers should feel more brave now. We'll see, right? And I'm willing to hear you out. I'm willing to listening to your reasoning. Once again, my position is that this, again, and I feel like a broken record, but I feel like it has to be said. This showcases and demonstrates what I feel is a gross negligence for handling highly classified information and how they talk or how they handle such information, and the, again, negligence with which they do so, which I feel rises to the level that should end their careers. Specifically, Hegseth, Waltz, and Ratcliffe. And if there's more information that others were sharing classified intel over this insecure platform, right? That they had not verified the identities of all those who were taking part, then yeah, I think that this they should be handing in their resignations as well. Do I think this will happen? I don't know. I wish it would, but I think it should happen. So again, Lactoid has said this is no big deal. I invite Lactoid, if you're listening, to call in. Old School on Twitter has said this is no big deal. I invite Old School to call in, right? Metra in the Discord has said this is no big deal. Metra, I invite you to call in, right? Anyone listening who has an issue with the takes I have had, please come on in, have a conversation with me, defend your position. Please. This is Whick versus the world. I'm taking all comers. While we wait, since we are waiting, okay, and someone in the Discord that's in the Discord, let me know when they jump backstage. We do have the first hint of a consequence coming from this. This is breaking news, okay? American Oversight is suing Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, John Ratcliffe, and others, saying their messaging on the Signal app is a violation of the Federal Records Act. Complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. The action arises from defendants' failure to meet their obligations under the Federal Records Act regarding messages from a group chat discussion of planned and active military operations from March 11th, 2025 through March 15th, 2025 on the messaging application Signal, which can be set up to automatically delete messages, which, again, according to the report, was set up to automatically delete messages after a period of days. Plaintiff, the American Oversight, brings this action under the Federal Records Act, and I won't read those numbers, and the Administrative Procedure Act, I'm not going to read the numbers, to prevent the unlawful destruction of federal records and to compel defendants to fulfill their legal obligations to preserve and recover federal records created through the unauthorized use of Signal for sensitive national security decision-making. There you go. That's the first thing that's happening, okay? We'll see where that goes. I think it's probably the least egregious of the things that were happening, right? Like, it's still bad, and it still deserves criticism, but it's less criticizable, or it does not rise to the level that I think that Hegseth and John Radcliffe demonstrated. And, of course, Waltz, who we have to thank for all of this, who let the guy in the first place. Who did he think he was inviting? I'm so curious. I thought, and I'm apparently incorrect on this. I'm apparently incorrect because I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find. I was like, was there another Goldberg in the administration, and he thought it was him and invited him? I couldn't find one. Not in any cabinet level position that it would make sense to be there. So who did he think he was inviting? Who did he think was being brought in? I just don't understand it. I don't get it. He meant to invite Goldman Sachs. I don't know, right? Like, I'm so curious who he thought it was. It's neither here nor there, right? Because it obviously wasn't who he thought he was. He did not verify the identity whatsoever, right? But I'm just so curious. I just don't know. Bill Goldberg, the wrestler, that would make no sense. But who knows? Let's see some of these other takes. Here's old MAGA. This is the cope. Okay, this is the cope coming out of everyone's mouth here. Give me a second. Let's listen in to our boy Jack Posobiec, okay? You're looking at a coordinated operation. This is being done to derail the agenda. Isolate cabinet members and pick them off. Let's see what he has to say.
If you don't understand you're looking at a coordinated operation, then you must have been asleep for the last 8 years. Understand, this is being done to derail MAGA. This is being done to derail the agenda. This is being done to try to isolate various cabinet members, to pick them off and attack them one by one, or to get them to fight amongst each other. That's why it's going on right now. That's how these things always happen. You're looking at an operation. If you don't think you're looking at an operation, you better wake up because you're in one.
Wow. They're scrambling, gang. They're scrambling. The Democrats, okay? It was the Democrats' fault that Michael Waltz invited Jeffrey Goldberg. That they smuggled him in, gang. It was a virus. They did it a virus. They forced Michael Waltz's fingers to press the button to invite him, okay? They have his family tied up in the basement, okay? It was blackmail information. And they did it for the express purpose, right, of having him there. And then they forced Hegseth. They forced him at gunpoint to share that classified information on an unsecure channel, right? On an unauthorized channel. They forced him, gang. It was the Democrats that did it. The level of crazy that we're dealing with, insanity and dishonesty, is frankly insulting. It's galling. Let's see what else this chucklefuck has to say. Breaking 100% coordinated op with Democrats on SSCI, timed right before the hearing. This is about derailing MAGA, the agenda, isolating cabinet members to turn them against each other. That's what we're seeing. This is what they do. What does
all of this happen? This text chain, everything you're talking about, is the attack on the Houthis that took place on March 15th, Saturday, the Ides of March. Do you think it's just random that it got released yesterday? I got a minute for you, before you got to bounce. Talk about that. Talk about this. This was a hearing that was set up. It was Andrew. Go ahead. Tell us about how this was set up.
It's not random. It's 100% coordinated. You really think that it's the Atlantic, which we've always told you is the central mouthpiece for the deep state apparatus, the blob apparatus, as Mike Benz calls it, the Atlantis apparatus mouthpiece. Their number one guy, the guy who was behind the Suckers and Losers hoax, the piece that was the same outlet that was behind the Russian bounties and so many other hoaxes throughout the years, in coordination with the Democrats.
Suckers and Losers wasn't a hoax. That was confirmed by fucking John Kelly, General John Kelly. The Russian bounties wasn't a hoax. That's also been confirmed. None of these are hoaxes. This guy literally is just lying to you. He's lying to your face. But let's keep going.
Democrats on SSCI on this hearing the day before they knew it came out. If you don't understand you're looking at a coordinated operation, then you must have been asleep for the...
Then he goes to his little spiel, his little shtick. It's insane. It's insane making. I feel less intelligent for having listened to that, for even considering it for the brief moment that I had to in order to just frankly reject at all comers. This is the spin they're doing. They're trying desperately to spin this because they know how bad it looks. They know that it is not just a bad look. It's not just bad optics. I'll correct myself. This demonstrates a level of unseriousness, a level of negligence to how they handle information and how they go about running the government. And that's their job, gang, is to run the government. And they're doing it in a piss poor manner, frankly. They invited a journalist to their secret group discussions on, like, highly sensitive topics, such as where we should strike, should we strike, and then they're sharing war plans, classified information, names of CIA operatives with Jeffrey Goldberg. No offense to him, but some weirdo, okay? Some reporter weirdo. It's insane. It's insane. I don't know if we're going to survive 4 years of this, gang. And I really don't like to be doomer, and I don't like to be hyperbolic. But if this is a level of competency that we're dealing with, as well as malice and dishonesty, right? I don't know if we can go 4 years with that. It's far easier to break things than it is to build. It's far, far easier to dismantle procedure. It's far, far easier to dismantle norms. It's far, far easier to dismantle things like due process than it is to build it back up. And it's a struggle we're fighting, gang. It's a fight in the courts at this point, right? Which I do wonder if they're going to try to just shred the courts too, and in what manner they're going to do that. But let's keep going, because it's not just the right that has bad takes on this. Let's see what our buddy Hasan has to say. Okay. Well, first of all, before I actually read and show you this, what do you think Hasan's take is on all this? If you had to guess, I want you to think about, like, what would Hasan say about all this, right? What does Hasan have to say about the group chat leaks and things like that? What's his position here? Let's just give it a look. Okay. This is from our buddy, someone who probably doesn't know who we are, but that's okay. Jeffrey Goldberg refusing to dump all the text messages in the Houthi signal chat is exactly why the NatSec advisor had his personal phone number. It is precisely the problem with fake journalists at legacy publishers. They're stenographers for the State Department. I had a little reply to it too, but we won't. That's not applicable to what we're talking about, right? He's not right. He's not correct. There's a very good reason why you don't just dump all that information. He should not have leaked it all. Again, it contains sensitive information that put the lives of Americans at risk. There are CIA operatives who are active in the field that would be at risk had he dumped that information. He did not need to dump the name of the person. He did not need. It serves no purpose. The information is no more relevant, right? Whether you know the exact name or not. It's just not. Again, this is just complaining to complain. It's complaining to complain. It's empty. It serves no purpose. It gets you no closer to your goal. It's simply a way for you to bitch and moan about, oh, they didn't leak every single thing so I could go over it and look at it and send it to the Houthis myself. Oh, come on. Come on. Again, the reason we don't want to leak targeting information even after the strikes have occurred is it because foreign adversaries can reverse engineer how we got that information, how we came about gathering that intelligence based on the intelligence we gathered, right? And they can, if they're competent, reverse engineer that and find out, well, okay, they got this information from this human asset in combination with this satellite image in combination with X, Y, and Z, right? And then they could take steps to harden themselves against further further intelligence collection. It's not something we do. It's not something we want to do. It makes our job harder. It makes the lives of those involved in gathering this intelligence less safe, and it's frankly would be highly negligent and highly irresponsible for him to just simply dump it onto the timeline. This is one of the reasons, one of the main criticisms I have of Snowden. Snowden wasn't a hero. Snowden wanted to do the right thing, but he was a fuck up. He fucked it up. He put the lives of Americans in danger. He put the lives of our intelligence gatherers in danger, and any benefit we had from the Snowden leaks, right, was washed away by the manner in which he released those leaks. Again, Jeffrey Goldberg did nothing wrong, and in fact handled this pitch perfectly. A stenographer of the state? Come on. Miss me with that shit. Okay, but, gang, this is a call-in show. This is a call-in show. And a lot of y'all are very mouthy on Twitter. Okay? A lot of you are very mouthy on Twitter. Come on in. It's a Discord. I'll share again. Links to all the thingies. Give me one moment to get those links. Clicky, clicky. Clicky, clicky. Click the link. Accept the rules. Jump backstage. Right? And I will pull you in. And you can tell me why I'm wrong when I say that these leaks demonstrate gross negligence, are serious violations, and we should have resignations from at least some of those involved. Specifically from John Radcliffe, from Pete Hegseth, and from Michael Waltz. If you disagree with that, please call in. If you think that I'm overblowing it, please call in. If you think that these people shouldn't be retired, please call in. Yeah. Think we will, though? Think they will be resigned? I hope they will, but I don't think so. I don't believe that they have honor or integrity. I don't think this administration has any honor or integrity. So no, they're going to. Well, here's what we do have what Trump has to say about all this. Okay. We do have information on what Trump has to say about all this. Let's see what Trump has to say, because Trump answered some of these questions. Let me see if I can't find them. Oh, I thought I had everything up. I guess not. Well, here's one at least. Here's one example of what Trump has to say about all this. Let's see what he has to say. Okay.
Decades.
Mr. President, that information was not classified.
Another question.
Which is your national
Please,
security
go ahead.
advisor. Just following up on your comment.
Bro's dodging.
Decades.
Bro doesn't want to answer that question. Who told him the information was not classified? Now, again, if you watched the hearing, the committee hearing earlier today, you saw that Tulsi and Radcliffe said that none of the information in the group chat was classified. That's a bold-faced lie. If it wasn't classified, they would obviously okay the release of that information, but they weren't even willing to give the logs to the committee for review, right? Let alone the public. Why is that? Why wouldn't they give non-classified information to the committee and the public if they've done nothing wrong, right? It's been leaked. They know it happened, right? It's insane. It's insane. What are we doing? This isn't how we should handle our national security. Here I think is a good exchange. It's worth watching, okay?
Director Radcliffe, this was a huge mistake, correct?
No.
A national
Hold on.
No, you
Let me
hold
answer.
on. No,
The
Director
answer for the
Radcliffe,
reason
I
I
asked
say
you a yes or
no.
no question, and now you hold on. A national political reporter
You can
was made
characterize it how you want.
was made privy
The White
to
House has made
sensitive information
clear
about
that there
imminent
was an
military
inadvertent
operations against a
mistake,
foreign terrorist
Inadvertent
organization.
mistake of adding a reporter.
And that wasn't a huge
to a
mistake?
seal.
That wasn't a huge mistake?
Well, I think they characterize
This is
it
an
as a
embarrassment.
mistake.
This is utterly unprofessional. There's been no apology. There has been no recognition of the gravity of this error. And by the way, we will get the full transcript of this chain, and your testimony will be measured carefully against its content. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This was a huge mistake, correct? Ratcliffe answers no. I watched this live. I almost spit the drink out of my mouth, okay? It was just so brazen. Such a brazen response. Was this a mistake? No. What do you mean it wasn't a huge mistake? This is obviously a huge mistake. This refusal to deal with reality, to be serious for 1 minute, is why I doubt the ability of this administration to solve any of our problems. When they won't even acknowledge this was a huge mistake. I don't get it. Okay. I don't get it. Why aren't you all calling in? I want you to call in. Fight me on this. Fight me. I'm in a mood. Okay? Here I am sitting live. The only brave individual was Desert, okay? Desert was able to call in, okay? He put his money where his mouth was, so to speak, okay? He went in there and he argued his point, and we give him some respect for that. His point was wrong, right? But Rabid Wombat says, how dare all of you agree with me? I know not all of you do. I know not all of you do, because several of you were in my Discord arguing against me. Several of you were on Twitter arguing against me. So I know not all of you agree with me. I know for a fact not all of you agree with me. So call in. Nisa Simpson says, I don't feel informed enough to say if I agree or don't, to be honest. What information would you need to either agree or disagree with the following statement? That the leaks in the Houthi group chat demonstrated a severe negligence of the handling of classified and sensitive information that should result in the resignation or termination of at least 3 of the individuals involved, namely Pete Hegseth, Radcliffe, and Michael Waltz. Acriel says, Whick, you're being ridiculous. Obviously, Waltz just has autism. And he was being goofy about using Signal. He's just feeling a silly little guy. Okay, Audacity. Oh, we got another comer. We got another brave soul. Hello. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank God. Okay. Where am I wrong here? Where do you disagree?
First of all, is my mic okay? I did a lot of moving.
You're fine. Yeah.
All right, cool. Hi. Long time no see.
It's been a minute.
Where are you wrong today? I don't know. Do you have verifiably all of the information here about operatives being leaked and everything? I think that's the great point to make in this argument is that, like, yeah, we have a text group, like a stand-up and everything. I think the worst message in this is the one from supposedly Stephen Miller about the green light message. That's obviously the worst one. The rest is just up to us to believe off of Goldberg's wording alone that there was like sensitive information in there. Maybe it gets turned over to, I don't know, investigative teams or whatever, oversight committees, judges, who knows, right? But at this point in time, anything verified on sensitive information, on actual classified operations, on movements, on executions.
So he has provided enough extraneous details, right, which has been, again, confirmed by the White House to show that he was there. He has put his credibility on the line with making these statements. And again, I believe him when he says that this information was classified and this information was highly sensitive. I believe him when he says that John Radcliffe released the name of an active CIA operative. I believe him when he says that they talked about, or Hegseth specifically, released the specific operational details prior to the strike on the Houthis, with targeting information where our planes would be, when, and how we would strike. And the reason I believe them specifically, right, is twofold, okay? One, he has, again, provided enough details to show he was there and puts credibility on the line. And two, this could be proven incorrect right away by Tulsi Gabbard. She was asked by the co-chairman, the lesser chairman, I forget the exact term of the guy, right? That if there wasn't this classified information within this text chain, then simply release the information. But they refused to release the information even to the committee, right? Let alone the public. And I think that I have enough information at this point to, again, with a high degree of certainty, say that in this case, Jeffrey Goldberg is telling the truth.
I'm sorry. I had a thought in my head. They probably don't release it because they're probably talking mad shit on committee members and stuff. And they're like, ooh.
I don't think they
all that
were
up
talking
first.
at the committee members. They might be talking. You
Who
know,
knows?
the funniest,
They were really mouthy
result
in
is they
there.
talking shit on Elon Musk. But I don't think there's any information that they said they were. But and on a serious note, right? Like, why? What more would you want to see?
I want Jeffrey Goldberg, if he's actually being truthful about this stuff, to put the information out there himself.
That's illegal.
Not that I like Hasan or whatever.
But that understand that would open it up to liability.
Posting a lot more in way of evidence that this stuff is out there. There's all types of blurring you could do. There's all types of editing to photos you could do to, process that information in a way to be like, hey, these messages happen. I don't care if it's just timestamps. He could do a lot more, But
well, he did give a timestamp, right? But even releasing in a redacted fashion, I mean, you could argue that he might be able to do so, but I don't think it would. Lessen the cries of people who say, "Well, we don't actually know what it was. It's too redacted. We can't even see." Right? Look at how people reacted to the redaction of the Epstein
then you're
files,
getting into the Jack Posobics of the world who are already retarded.
Yeah, but I don't
cares
think
anyway.
anyone's. I don't think even the normies that are at this point unconvinced would be convinced by that. I don't think it serves a purpose. Now, do I think that he should release it to perhaps I don't know. I don't even know who you would release this to that wouldn't put you in legal liability, because the administration.
You could give it to Asif, who you just played.
Well, no, you can't. You can't, right? Because he's not on the need to know thing. So I can't share, even if someone else has a clearance, right? I could not, because I held a top secret security clearance for a while in my job. I couldn't share.
Issued them.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't share the information I got, even with someone else who had a top secret security clearance, unless they had a need to know and there was an active need to do so. It would violate, right, the classification. It would be illegal, right? It would get me in trouble.
There's a whole bunch of process that can go into place if you wanted to release that information to a committee. I mean, you could even go so far as to get in contact with the FBI to be like, hey, I was made privy to, when they shouldn't have been, information, of a sensitive nature, go through that route to start getting it to the right people, getting the right hands, which could all be stuff that is happening in the background right now.
I mean, he did release the document like this, and as Asif said, they are going to. Now, I don't know that I'm not technically proficient enough to know if they could retrieve the message chain from Signal or whatever, but Asif seemed very confident that they could.
Yeah, it hasn't gone past the expiry
We'll see.
date for Signal yet. I think Signal chats expire after 30 days.
I don't know. I don't know the. I
Yeah,
don't
we
know the
used
technical
it.
enough
We
of it.
used it in civil affairs a lot to do like stand-ups, like, "Hey, be here at such time." No further instructions, stuff like that.
So, just to be clear, you disagree with my statement that this demonstrates gross negligence and that Hegseth, Waltz, and Radcliffe at least should put in their resignations. Just to be clear, you disagree?
I think it's a fuck up that does not determine the need for resignations unless more information comes out. You want to put the statement out there right here, right now, that they deserve to resign
Yes.
in disgrace. Go for it. I completely expect you to make that kind of call, that kind of judgment call. But we don't know everything that happened. We don't know all the details there. And we're kind of running off of word of mouth of a sycophantic journalist who has been trying to put, tar and feather Trump and his administration every chance ever since the dude came down the escalator. So I don't really know.
Well, the information has been confirmed by the White House itself, right?
The information that the chat happened.
And that he
and
was
that these
in
messages. Yeah, and that he was in the chat.
Yes.
But what was said in the chat? The rest of the messages look like stand-up stuff. They look like stand-up meeting stuff, the kind of stuff I would get in my, team's group, in my team's messages for civil affairs and everything from first sergeants and shit. So, a lot of opinions in there. Not so much in the way of what we see right now, classified or sensitive information.
Again, this kind of catch-22 you're trying to pull, right? That, well, he has to release the information or else we won't know that the information's there. But if he releases the information, it puts him into a world of liability. And if he does it poorly or if he makes a mistake doing it, it actually, if he's telling the truth, and this is highly sensitive classified information, it does put our security at risk. And he made the call, and I agree with this call, not to do that, but to release enough information that would showcase that he was there. Now, again, where this goes from here, I do think that there should be an investigation. Look, let them have their day in court. Hegseth, Radcliffe,
I was about to say, be good faith to me, because I did say he should find a channel to go through. Not that he should just blurt it out on Twitter.
Yeah. Radcliffe, all the rest, right? Waltz, they should have the ability to make a defense for what they did, right? And if they think that he's lying, they should be able to provide counter evidence, right? And show that, well, here are the actual logs that we have, right? This showcases that we don't have anything to hide, etc., etc. They could do that. They have yet to do that. If they do that, I might change my opinion. If I do get more information and it shows that Jeffrey Goldberg had lied or had twisted or misrepresented what was said, then fair enough. But so far, all the information I have coming out showcases that he has been telling the truth. And I think that the responses today in the committee hearing. Did you watch that, by the way?
Nope, didn't have the time.
You should.
But
you
that'll
should.
be later.
I think that solidified, right, my stance here. Because, again, Tulsi Gabbard wouldn't even admit she was in the chat at first.
Ooh.
And so the committee was like, who do you think TG is, right? Who was TG if not Tulsi Gabbard? And the way that they're handling this and the way that they're trying to cover this up is just, it's incompetent, frankly, which tracks with how they've been handling the whole situation with classified intelligence, right? That they are just, again, they claim that no classified information was there, but they use very specific wording for that. They say, well, no classified intelligence by our department was released, which It sounds like
they're doing the lawyer
CYA
shit.
to me, right?
Yeah,
Pondering
it's
Politics
the
for
lawyer
$5 says, "What are we calling this? Signalgate, Goldberggate, Atlanticgate?" I call it the Hegseth Groupchat leak, but we do need a better term. I just don't have it. But here's the thing. I think that we don't have to wait for every single bit of information to make a judgment call here. I think that we have sufficient information. It's incomplete information, I'll grant you that, but we have sufficient information to make a judgment call, right? A judgment call on who's telling the truth and who's not. I think at the very least, we should call for an investigation, which is happening. It's absolutely happening at this point, so great. But I have seen enough to be confident in my call that Hegseth, Radcliffe, Gabbard should resign. Because who's going to trust us? Five Eyes? Do you think the Five Eyes is secure now, knowing that we handled intelligence this way? Do you think our allies are going to be more or less likely to share the information that they gather, right, with the heads of our national security, right, of the Secretary of Defense, of the National Intelligence, right? Knowing that we just go into group chats and shoot the shit with reporters.
I can tell you Five Eyes hasn't trusted us for a long time, so ever since
good call. Good call on that.
US intelligence is at the low point of a lot of global intelligence agencies. They are very tentative to share with us any information, but hey, they only love us for our body, not our brains. They love us because we have more satellites in the air than they do. So, I mean, that's why we're a part of Five Eyes, because we have the better infrastructure, not necessarily the better operations.
Fair enough. Obviously, right? I haven't heard of any leaks of group chats from Australia or Britain, right? MI6 isn't sharing
You never
us.
will hear of group chat leaks from Britain.
Fair enough. But
Fair enough.
Is there anything else that you had with a problem with what I had to say?
Nah, man. You're doing. It would be stupid of me to just be mad at you, like, Whick, you're such a reactionary. But that's always going to be my thing. Is like, hey, we don't have all the information right now, and I know that seems like sweeping. Fuck it, it is sweeping. I don't care. But when I'll make a judgment call when it's like, oh yeah, you guys are actually putting names in the group chat with an unverified number.
You would agree though that there should absolutely be an investigation based on the information we have now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cool.
Shit, dude.
I think we can break bread on that.
If I have to investigate someone because they spill, an email with I'll be at lunch at 3:30, there should be an investigation into a group chat. And if I was good, and it would be hypocritical of me to be like, hey, investigate that server in Hillary Clinton's, house or whatever, then for me to not say, go investigate this, but do an investigation for fuck's sake.
And I would
before we start
encourage
making
you.
all these claims.
Yeah, I would encourage you after you've watched my show, of course, and you donate all the super chats, to go and watch the hearing. Okay, I think it will be illuminating.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, I'll talk to you later, buddy.
All right, see you, man.
See, not scary, not yelly, not screamy. Okay, if you come correctly, I'll be correct with you. So again, I don't agree with it, but I can understand the people who are like, well, let's wait a little bit, right? I understand that. I don't think you can ever go. Well, I won't say ever, but I don't think it's a harmful take, right? But I do think that at this point, the writing's on the wall, man. Right? I can make this call, and I'm comfortable making this call. Jeffrey Goldberg has handled this in, I think, a pitch perfect way, and I think that the information that he has released, which again has been verified, has been corroborated by the White House, is indicative that he is telling the truth. He is a trustworthy source, okay? In this instance, at the very least. And I think that knowing that, we can take him at least at his word enough to start an investigation to get to the bottom of it, right? And frankly, I think at this point, we should be demanding resignations, because the reason this is going to damage us right? Even just the story damages us. Is it because it showcases how poorly we treat our classified intel, okay? Our classified information. And even though we may be, right, not trusted on the world stage, trust can always go lower, gang. And this lowers the willingness of other countries to share information with us. Why is information sharing important? So, a little history lesson for you. The Department of Homeland Security was made because, in part, 9/11 happened because agencies were refusing to share information with each other. They weren't sharing intelligence properly, right? There was breakdowns in communication. Now, the Department of Homeland Security was built to rectify that problem. We can scale this up. So on a global stage, an international stage, with our allies, it's important that we share freely information with each other, okay? So that we can get a better intelligence picture, that we can have a better view of what's going on, that we have more intelligence, more access to other assets that we normally wouldn't have, and we can have a better threat detection and response because we have more accurate intelligence to work with. That breaks down if we stop sharing intelligence properly. If people are hesitant to share the information that their asset on the ground in Chongqing received about a potential attack, right, on an American asset there or an American operative there, because they worry that we're going to mishandle that information and intelligence and reveal their source, even inadvertently, to the enemy. And it makes them less likely to share the information, which makes us less safe. It makes us less secure. It makes us less effective. And it's very bad, gang. Very, very bad. Very, very bad. Make sure to highlight Dinesh D'Souza's brilliant take. Can you text me that or DM me that? I don't have it on hand. We got more stuff. So remember, gang. You guys remember this headline? I do. Tulsi Gabbard, member of the group chat, fired more than 100 intelligence officers over messages in a chat tool. Inappropriate messages in a chat tool. They were fired because the discussion went beyond work to sexual themes and political messages. Okay. I would posit that sharing classified information over an unsecure source is worse than this. It's worse than using a government application to talk about sex. It's more dangerous to our national security, for our national intelligence director to be talking about classified work projects, right? And being privy to discussions in an unsecure server. I think it's crazy. I think it's insane. It's insane making. I don't know. Any other callers, gang? Anyone else want to come in and disagree with my take? I'm in a fighting mood. I don't know. We have some great shows coming up. I don't know how long this is gonna go, gang. If we're running out of things, right, and no one else is calling in, we might end early. But we got some great shows coming up. That's gonna be fun. I can talk about it while I wait. Tomorrow we have Enemy Charlie coming on. We have Soy Pill. We have J-Mac. We have New York Shade. And we have Shenandoah, a new person coming on. And we're going to be talking about the state of politics, okay, in America. It'll be a fun discussion. Thursday, we have a bit of a bigger discussion going on, but still, they're all fun. They're all great. The guest list from this, and let me get that up for you real quick. We are having Not So Erudite. We are having Eucharist. We are having Renee DiResta. Renee DiResta, or the author, basically, or the person who is quote unquote responsible for the Twitter files. Okay, she's going to be coming on. We're going to have Claire Lemon coming on, and she is the founder of Quillette. And we're going to have Tracing Woodgrains, and it should be a fun discussion. And we're going to be talking about Democrats' abysmal polling numbers, okay? Abysmal polling numbers, and what Democrats can do to turn it around, what Democrats need to do to win Americans' public's trust back. It should be a fun discussion. It should be an interesting topic. Tune in. I still want you guys to call in, though, about the goddamn Hegseth stuff. How come all of you are so brave, okay? All of you are so brave on Twitter, but it's when it comes time to actually talk to me. Here's a Dinesh D'Souza. This is his take. The war plan hoopla. The left goes into a collective howl about the need for resignations. But this time, they are meeting a wall of resistance. Or even better, indifference. They don't even seem to understand, but they simply don't have that kind of power anymore. That's the problem, though. That's the problem. That Republicans and conservatives don't seem to give a shit about this. People who were calling for Hillary Clinton to be imprisoned don't give a shit about this. They do not care. I think that gives the lie to that they ever cared about national security in the first place. That they ever gave a shit. That this was anything other than a weapon to use against Hillary Clinton. Like her servers and her emails, they didn't care about any of that. Not a damn bit. Now, to be clear, some conservatives, a few, have come forward and condemned Hegseth, Waltz, etc. And fair enough, right? Counterpoints has done that. Jebtan has done that, I've seen. I even saw Rob Noor do that. At least one tweet of him saying that it was problematic that this happened. So again, we have some conservatives that have stepped up. But far too many that I've talked to don't see a problem with this. They don't see an issue, right? Because it's not about security. It's about power politics. It's about power politics to them, right? It's not about principles. Or rather, the only principle at play is that of power. What they can do and what they can get away with. That's it. They will use any tool that they think they can use to bludgeon their opponents. And they will, for whatever they're bludgeoning them on, they will turn around and use that as well if they think they can get away with it. Because they don't care. They don't actually care about any of this. Here's the problem I have. And I don't know if this is a weakness or whatever. I don't see it as such, but some might characterize it as such. I actually do care about these principles. Okay? I actually do care about our national security and how our classified intel is handled. Look, I think the Clinton thing is overblown, but I think that there is some condemnation to be leveled against Hillary Clinton and her private server and how she handled that classified information. I think she deserved to be investigated for it. She deserved to be excoriated for it to a certain degree. I think they went overboard with it, but fair enough, right? I think that she deserves condemnation for how she handled that, right? And I think she apologized. And I think she corrected it. But again, the Clinton emails is something I'd have to read up on more, right? Been years, okay? But you had the very same people, Hegseth, Rubio, others, Radcliffe, others, who have made very public, constant statements calling for the prosecution of Hillary Clinton for her mishandling of classified information, engaging in the same type of reckless disregard for classified information. And that, to me, is a level of hubris, a level of hypocrisy that showcases that none of them actually care about our nation's security and our nation's intelligence. And that, to me, is a problem. I don't think you deserve to be in the position you are in as Secretary of Defense if you do not have a respect for the information and intelligence and classification of our nation's secrets and security. I don't think you deserve a spot if you handle it so negligently. I don't think you deserve to be the Director of National Intelligence if you are so negligent in how you handle classified intelligence and how you let your peers handle classified intelligence with nary a peep, with nary a word, saying, hey, do you think this is appropriate to be sharing in this kind of space here? At any time, Tulsi Gabbard could have said that. It doesn't appear that she did. It appears that she was very silent when Pete Hegseth was putting out classified intelligence, right, in a insecure, non-authorized location with unverified individuals privy to that information. You don't deserve your position. Resign. That's it. Resign. You disagree with my take? We still have call-ins for the next few minutes at least. Call in, jump backstage. Come on in, baby. Come on in. Let's talk. I know, Kamikaze, you're having to stay silent because of things, right? But okay. I don't think any of the rest of you are coming in. Oh, wait, no. Oh, I almost spoke too soon. Oh, my God. We have a caller. Hello, you're live.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm G. Is my camera actually on? It's not. I just wanted to I actually agree with you, so I might be super boring, but I work in healthcare, and we have the similar issue with if people do share any classified information. I have a friend who was at a network that Trump actually ended up visiting. It was a hospital, and I think 50 people got fired, and they're blacklisted from lots of jobs because not being able to handle private health information is like a death sentence. If we're and for mostly, I wanted to bring this up to like more conservative people or more libertarian people about thinking about the standard not being as high. Like if corporations are blacklisting and removing some of their best workers because of these, you may consider them small, but they are huge marks on your record that get you completely banned.
No, you're exactly right. I think that, again, it just goes to showcase and compare. Like, I said this yesterday, and I'll repeat it. Had I done what Hegseth or Waltz or Radcliffe had done, and had even inadvertently, and again, intention's not the topic here, right? Even accidentally, even as a mistake, if I had gone and released information that was classified, I would be discharged at the least. At the least, right? I might be facing charges based on the severity of, right? Had I leaked this active CIA agent's name, I would be in jail right now. It's the two-tier justice system between what you can get away with when you have the power, right, is just galling. It's galling as someone who's worked with classified information before. I'll give you another example, right? In my other job as the military, I worked with airplanes. KC-135 airframe. I was a crew chief, and one of the jobs that we had was to inspect the plane and to see if there were anything wrong with it. And there was a document that we used, a binder, right? And in that binder, we would mark up different things on the plane, like they had different designations. And one of those designations was a red X. Red X's meant they can't fly. They were not authorized to take off until the red X got signed off on and the red X was repaired, right? The plane couldn't fly because it would put the lives of the crew and the health of the plane in unacceptable levels of risk. All it would take is one mistake where I signed off on a red X and that red X wasn't fixed and that got discovered that I did that, I would lose a stripe at the least. I would be court-martialed. There would be severe penalties. And God forbid something happened to the plane or someone got hurt because of the condition that I signed off on saying it was fixed when it was not fixed. Then we're looking at jail time, right? Fines, disgrace, dishonorable discharge, etc. And all it takes is one mistake. You don't get a do-over. You don't get a second chance. That's how serious we treat these things, right? And intelligence, classified intelligence, is treated in much the same way because it has much the same effect. When you are negligent with this information, it can cost people's lives. But is there anything else you want to say before? If you're agreeing with me.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I saw it was open, so I figured.
Yeah. Well,
if
thank
there
you.
was no one else. But the only thing I do want to add to that as well is there's no way that he didn't know that this was a problem. At my time when I was an intern at the VA, the day my internship was over, I was not allowed in the building. As well as I even heard a funny story from my friends that the cleaning crew needs to check in and get their identities and their clearance done by the day just to clean. They were talking about the offices are filthy because they can't get clearance for cleaning people. It is something that is very clear, and if they don't have these standards, then these idiots should not be in office.
I agree.
But thank you so much.
No, thanks for calling in, brother. Yeah, again, if you guys don't disagree. Whick versus the world. The world being two callers. So I do appreciate Audacity. I do appreciate Desert for calling in and being willing to talk about this and being willing to at least challenge my beliefs. I appreciate that. It's just so disappointing. It's predictable, but it's disappointing. And let's be clear. Even I did not think it would be so bad. Even I did not think it would be such gross incompetence on this scale. I would never in a million years predict that they would have added a reporter to a secret group chat in which they were sharing classified information with each other. The cabinet. We're talking the highest of the high here, the cabinet, right? Trump's cabinet. At least 18 people, right? His director of national security, his director of, his secretary of defense, the vice president, secretary of state, Marco Rubio, 15 to 18 people in his cabinet just chatting it up. And look, if all they had done was talk about whether or not they should strike a target, that's still concerning. That's still really, really bad that someone had access to that kind of level of discussion. Because again, that information in and of itself, those kinds of discussions are sensitive. They may not be classified, but they're sensitive information that, again, foreign adversaries would love to be able to be a fly on the wall when those discussions were happening for a host of reasons. If you know what reasoning is being used and what arguments are being made, you can drive a wedge potentially between cabinet members. You can drive a wedge between the vice president and the president if you know the sources of their disagreements and these things, right? And you can try to do that. Also, if you are a foreign adversary and you know that they're plotting whether or not they're going to strike your port, right? You can beef up the defenses there. You can prepare for it, and whether or not they decide or not, at least you know what they are interested in, what they're interested in targeting. And again, knowing what they're interested in targeting, you can reverse engineer as to why and what their grand strategic goals are, what their actual geopolitical stances are. You can reverse engineer a lot of that. And it's just very sensitive information. But that's not all they did. That's not all they did. They were also sharing attack vectors, times of attack, methods of attack, okay? Where our personnel would be and when they would be there. And that information, had it gotten to the Houthis or had it gotten to a foreign adversary of any kind, would put our people, our servicemen, at risk. It would threaten their lives. This isn't them discussing what they had for dinner or what they were going to order from Chinese, right? I want Chinese. I kind of want to order Chinese, but maybe tomorrow. It's just insane, right? It's just insane how cavalier this is being treated. Hegseth, Gabbard, Radcliffe, they're denying this. They're denying that any of the information they released in this group chat was classified. Time will tell. I believe Jeffrey Goldberg, and I frankly don't trust Hegseth and Gabbard and Radcliffe, frankly. Okay, Joe Lewis wants to call in. Let's talk to Joe Lewis. Give me a second. Hey, you're live.
You still circling around the same point?
Look, I wanted people to call in. I invited a bunch of people to call in. About 2 of the 10 people I invited showed up, right? So kudos to those 2, but no one else showed. So got to make content, right?
Interesting. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just not sure how much.
I mean, look, I know you agree at least with me in principle that this was a major colossal fuck up, right?
Sure.
Do not?
So listen, Jeff Goldblum is a cuck. He's a piece of shit journalist.
Goldberg, you mean?
And Goldberg, I hope he loses his job over this. I'm tired of these fucking liberals acting like Donald Trump is the greatest threat to the world.
Did you get a haircut, brother?
I did get a haircut.
That looks nice.
That I did.
Looks nice.
Thank you. But I'll say that, okay, so the same guy who leaked the losers comment that Trump did in 2020, the same guy that tried to paint the Trump administration as the greatest threat in the history of democracy or some shit. And now he has an opportunity where he's fed some shit and he doesn't even leak all of it. It just kind of seems like somebody, listen, this is conspiratorial as fuck. I'll admit it. It just seems very interesting that he's the same person who's very oppositional to the Trump administration, the very person who time and time again is very confrontational. Clearly the Atlantic has been struggling for a while, but it's he's the one that gets added of all the people in the journalistic apparatus. He does. And I just think that, look, just sit on it. It's not gonna do, but I don't think it's gonna do anything in the larger stream of things relative to this administration. So it's just very interesting how, given he believes that Donald Trump is this great threat, given that he believes that the Trump administration writ large is disorganized, it just kind of seems like he wanted to do something that can help bring clicks to the Atlantic and then just give something that Democrats can be mad about for a couple of months.
So
it doesn't necessarily seem that there's a lot of energy outside of that.
Okay. A couple questions. So first of all, you mentioned how he leaked the suckers and losers comment, and you mentioned that why was he willing to, and correct me if I'm misphrasing this, right? But basically the implication is if he's willing to leak that, why wasn't he willing to leak the whole conversation in the Houthi group chat? And my question to you do you think that the leaking the suckers and losers comment would be at the same level of seriousness as leaking, say, the name of an active CIA agent?
I think a better question to ask is, what's the function behind him doing this? What function does this serve? What is this trying to reveal about the administration? Because it's very clear that he's trying to elicit something, some type of idea of what the admin would be, unless he would, otherwise he would have done it. Where
So-
like, okay, go for it.
Go ahead. No, please finish.
So like my whole thing again, to make sure I'm clear about this, is I don't think that Goldberg is a serious journalist. I think he is an individual who is very much skirting this line of journalism and brand management, if that's a way if you can describe it. Where like, is this journalism or is this brand management of the Atlantic, but wrapped in such a way that can avert controversy?
So
you know what I mean?
To answer your question, and again, I'm not Goldberg. I don't know his mind, but I can make inferences and guesses based on his behavior, based on his statements, and based on just kind of like logically what I would do in that situation. Like the reason that I think that this matters and that's the way he reported on it, even without leaking all the classified information, just leaking what he did matters, is it showcases again, as I've been saying the whole time, and you're gonna yell at me for repeating myself because it's circling, but it showcases a gross level of negligence. And I think that that is newsworthy. I think that that is something that a journalist who's privy to that kind of information has a responsibility to report on. And I think that he decided, right, that even if it might make his case stronger to release the unredacted, classified information, that he decided not to do that primarily for two reasons. One, super illegal. He'd go to jail, right?
Okay.
You can't do that. You would go to jail. So there's self-interest in there. Fair enough. And second of all, what it does, if you release that information, is it puts our national security at risk. It puts any names that happen to be released in that, that were our assets, their lives are now in serious jeopardy and serious danger. I guess my question to you would be, what purpose would it serve to release that information, right? Like, would it make, how would it make the case stronger that he has presented?
I think it's incredibly irresponsible for a journalist to get added to something on accident and stay in there. And then when it's found out through a myriad of ways that he should not be in there, then he discloses it. Where in most cases, I would imagine if you're journalistically responsible, you would immediately go, I do not belong in this. Instead, he waited. And made a story about it.
Well, he makes
and that's a very story that's behind a paywall. You cannot read the story unless you sign up for a free trial for The Atlantic or pay for a subscription. So it's clearly if he cared about journalistic integrity, he'd have it out for free without trial, without subscription. But instead, it's behind The Atlantic and a paywall.
Okay, so there's two different things. There's two different things, and I want to address them separately. So the pay issue, we're going to set that aside for a minute. The paywall issues, we're going to set that aside for a minute. We'll get to that. But I wanted to address the statement that when the irresponsibility of remaining in a place where he was added accidentally and he shouldn't have been, right? So as I read the report, he at first did not believe that this was serious. He didn't think this was real. And he showcases that in his report. He says, this is a setup. This can't be real. This is a trap. And he was curious, and so he kind of waited. Once he was able to verify it was real, he immediately left, and he immediately contacted, and this is before he published the story, right? He immediately contacted the individuals involved and the NCS, right, agency, the National Communications Security Agency, right? And he got statements from them before he published his story. So again, I think that when he did realize this is serious, this is real, these aren't people just fucking with me, he immediately did, I think, the responsible thing. He left, After gathering the data, he left. He contacted the people involved. He let them know, I'm going to publish a story. I want your statements. Here's the questions I have to ask you. And he lists them in the questions he asks in his report. And yeah, what did he do wrong in that chain of events? What did he do incorrectly?
Again, my question here is, why post the story in the first place? Why wait 10 days to make a story about this? And if it is something of concern, then sure, you can elicit that within your argumentation. But again, the core of my reservation here is that this is an individual in the past who has made stories to try to, again, have a weird sort of journalism in the like marketing in the guise of journalism. Because my issue are those two things together. He was in a chat for 2 hours. He then found out that
it was longer than 2 hours. It was several days, right? The reason he knew,
from what I understand, like as far as the attack is concerned, like he was within the correspondence from remembering the article correctly, at least 2 hours.
He was in there for a period of several days, so he was added days before the attack. The attack, when it happened, was how he knew it was real. He again saw the information that Pete Hegseth said about the times and locations of the attack, and then when the news reports hours later came out saying the times and locations of attacks, he was like, oh shit, this is real, and he was able to act on that. So this was, again, the timeline here is at least a couple days that he was in there.
Yeah, but that makes it worse.
How so?
Because again, as a journalist, your job, in my eyes, is to report the facts of the situation and report facts in a way that you believe to be relevant to a broader thing.
What was irrelevant about how he reported?
Right, I believe his narrative is to try to paint in any way, shape, or form that Donald Trump and extension, the folks around him, are irresponsible. And that might work for him, but this isn't necessarily something that we needed to... Like, we knew this is an irresponsible administration.
Yeah, but
so
hold on, just
who
real
is
quick.
This article? Yeah, I'm just saying, like, so real quick, like, who is this article serving? What's the purpose of this article functionally as a journalist? He's done this in the past multiple times. You can go back to when he leaked the stuff for the Kings in Yemen. You can go back to the entire piece that he did at the end of 2023 about Donald Trump saying, like, the greatest threat that American democracy is concerned. You can go back to the God, what did he say that back in 2020? Like, there's multiple examples of this, and I don't necessarily think that he's a legitimate journalist because there's no through line of this when it comes to like actual journalism. It just kind of seems like it's just trying to be journalism, but it's just market branding for the Atlantic. They're trying to make sure that they're relevant.
It's really hard for me to. I'm trying to understand. Okay,
sure,
because I think that it is the height of journalism when you have stumbled upon information that the government is engaged, activities that the government is engaged in that reveal how specifically they are being negligent or incompetent with information that they have access to and the responsibilities that they hold. I think that the journalistic, the journalist's job in that case is to report on that information, which I feel that Goldberg did. Now this ties into the
But he
paywall.
waited a week.
You take your time. You make sure you got all the facts and all your ducks in a row. You make sure that you verified all the sources. You make sure that you've contacted all the all the people. Again, in the report, he talks to several other experts in the fields that are relevant, in the fields of security, in the fields of the military strikes and things like that, to gather and make sure that he is going to present this information correctly. He's doing what is called due diligence. And I think that is exactly.
And that takes 10 days as the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic?
It can.
On a very simple shut and dry situation that he was included in a group chat on accident and then left. you need 10 days for that.
You need 10
To make a
days to
puff piece on
verify.
that?
You need time. I don't know exactly how many days you would need for this, but you need time to gather responses for those involved, like to give them a chance to have a say, saying, I'm having this story. I'm going to publish it in advance around this time. Do you
I
have
don't
any
buy it.
statements?
I do
I'm
not
not
buy
done.
it.
I'm not done, right? Let me
I
finish,
don't buy it,
right?
but
You
keep
also
going.
need time to contact security experts to say, hey, would this kind of information be appropriate to talk about in this venue with
He's
these
the editor
people
in chief.
involved?
He can do whatever he wants. Like if he thought this was something of a great importance, then he would have done it and bypassed those things. We've had examples of journalists do this in the past. That's why I'm questionative of the purpose of the article from a journalistic perspective. From a marketing perspective, makes sense. You've been trying to paint Donald Trump as the enemy of the state for almost, what's at this point, it's like what, 4 or 5 years? And now you have an opportunity that, hey, I'm in this thing that I'm not supposed to be in. Like, it's interesting is all. And like the semantics of it, sure. Like that's the thing that like we're I don't necessarily aligned about, but it's pretty simple. That look, at the most, the folks, and I said this in your Discord, at most the folks in there are careless.
Well, yes, the people in my Discord are not journalists. That's true.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like at best, you get rid of the top of the chain. So you get rid of the messenger as well as whoever is responsible for said messenger. And then you just send a signal that, hey, if this happens again, you're all gone. I don't even care if you're my VP. But yeah, I mentioned that before. But the angle that I'm going at in the context of this, and I'm only going to this angle considering that you were looking for some level of
no, if this is what you believe, then yes, this is worthy of discussion.
Right?
No,
but
fine.
I'm saying that like this part of it is not something that I'm deeply invested in, and from a conspiratorial angle.
Sure.
Right? Like it's like low.
You won't die on the hill.
Low.
Yes,
It's low on my list of things. But I do find it interesting in the way that he went about this. That's all. It's just interesting to me.
Do you think that? Okay, no, we're gonna go back to it.
I believe he released the art. I believe he released.
Do you think he's being honest in his reporting?
What's that?
Do you think he's honest in his reporting? That he's reporting.
I don't think he's honest about the publishing of the story.
Okay, what does that mean?
So if I have, let's say, I'll use Adam Schefter as an example. He's great at this. He's great. A lot we could pull from. Let's say that Aaron Rodgers signs with is looking to retire. Let's say Aaron Rodgers is looking to retire. He talked to and he accidentally he falls into, let's say, in the same circumstances, he falls into a group chat of Aaron Rodgers and people closest to him. He doesn't know why he's in there, but he just kind of chills in there for a couple days. And in that, he releases the fact that he's going to retire. Let's say in the group chat, Aaron Rodgers definitively decides, I'm going to retire from the NFL. I'm going to do it this way, yada, yada, yada. And then Schefter, for whatever reason, decides to go on to ESPN, which is his place of employment for the you don't understand what I'm talking about, and then just breaks that as a breaking story. Like he understands the sensitivity of he understands like all the stuff, like this is sensitive information, this is somebody's livelihood that I'm talking about, yada, yada, yada. And then he just goes to the public and leaks that. I know from the history of Adam Schefter that he does these things to drive clicks and to drive views and to drive controversy, not only to ESPN viewers, but the broader NFL public. He's done this numerous times. He's done it numerous times where instead of waiting to have the people do the things on their own terms, instead of waiting for the proper media channels from the teams and otherwise to do it themselves, he does it to drive views for ESPN because that's his employer. And sometimes he does it behind paywalls too. Diabolical piece of shit. I put him in a similar camp of Jeff Goldberg, where I don't necessarily believe that he's doing these things strictly on journalistic terms. I believe he's doing these things from a marketing perspective
To get paid.
and journalistically. And he's balancing that act. And I don't necessarily trust his reliability in the balance because of his antagonization of the Trump administration in the past.
Do you think that journalists deserve to be paid for their efforts?
I mean,
Their
yeah.
work? Yes.
Sure.
So what precisely is wrong with the journalist wanting to be paid by putting his work behind
Because it's
a
not
paywall?
it's not only about your money. Like, your job as a journalist is not only about money. If that were the case, nobody would be reporting in Gaza right now. Like, the responsibility of a journalist is, in some ways, depending on how you look at it, the very idea of making sure that we cover the facts on the ground in situations.
But you seem to distrust this reporter specifically because he is getting paid.
It's not because he's getting paid. He's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic.
So he's getting paid a lot.
He's the guy. He is the guy at the top. This wasn't a low-level individual who posted this on The Atlantic. This is the guy. The guy at the top.
Had it not been
Number
the
one,
editor-in-chief and he did it in the exact same way he did, would you still have an issue with it?
Yeah, no, because it wouldn't be Jeff Goldberg. I misheard your question. It wouldn't be Jeff Goldberg here. So I'd have to look at the context of the journalist who released it. If the journalist in context had a history of just posting things that they thought were newsworthy, and this was the thing that they posted that they thought was newsworthy, then that's a totally different conversation. But again, because of Jeff Goldberg's history and his antagonization of the Trump administration, especially considering the Trump administration has also been antagonistic to The Atlantic in terms of its integrity and its relevance, then I'm very questioning of one, why he was even included in the first place. Because, like, it would be, like, if I know, and again, this is getting pure conspiratorial here, so buckle up, Buckaroo. Like, if I know that there's an editor-in-chief who is looking to paint the administration as terrible and awful and disgusting, what's stopping me from creating a group chat of higher up officials to see if this guy will keep his mouth shut?
I mean, what?
I'm just saying.
Hold on,
like,
I'm just trying. Let me give me a second.
Welcome
Give me a
here,
second.
welcome
I'm
here.
buckling up,
Welcome
but
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
wrapping my head around this idea, and I admit,
listen,
I know
this
that you
can
admit this is
stop.
conspiratorial. I know
This rabbit hole, and again, like, I want to make this so clear to you, Whick, right?
I'm just so.
Yeah.
I'm
Wait,
just
I
so
want to be
trying
clear. I want to be clear on something.
Go on.
Before you say anything, to be clear, to preface this, because I know how your chat is about me, and they're probably freaking out. This is so low on the things that I care about in this story.
I get you.
And this is just for the sake of driving the content.
I get you.
But go ahead.
Okay. I just thinking to myself, like, if I'm in the room when I'm making this decision, like, we're going to get, we don't like this guy. Jeffrey Goldberg, he's a piece of shit. He's been antagonistic to our administration. Let's get this guy. So here's the plan, okay? We're going to get into all the cabinet members. We're going to get into a group chat together, okay? We're going to start talking about sensitive information, sensitive topics.
It just takes one person.
Yeah.
It just takes one person to passively do this. It doesn't have to be this, like, 18-member collusion.
So,
that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
Let's say Stephen
That's
Miller, 'cause he's a
ridiculous.
piece of shit.
Is it any more ridiculous than some dude deciding, Mike Waltz specifically, because we know who did it, right? We know who added him to the chat. It's not a secret. Michael Waltz added him to the chat. So is your allegation that Michael Waltz was trying to fuck the Trump administration here?
Real quick, let's say for the sake of argument, Mike Waltz doesn't like him. In this hypothetical, I'm saying Mike Waltz doesn't like this man. He doesn't like his work from The Atlantic.
Sure. Okay.
Et cetera, so on and so forth.
Well, I think that's a good assumption to make based on that he is part of the administration. Trump values loyalty, so we can roll with it. I think that's a reasonable assumption to make. Okay, so man, I'm Mike Waltz. I don't like this fucking Jeffrey Goldberg. I hate this motherfucker. You know what would get him? You know what would really fuck him up? Can I finish, please? What would really fuck him up is if I invited him into my cabinet group chat with we had the Secretary of Defense, we have the Secretary of State, we have the Director of National Intelligence, and we let him sit there and see all of our discussions on classified information, and then then what? Then what in my plan happens next?
No, but look at it. But think about it this way, right? Like, no one I have a lot of reason to believe that even the most liberal of liberals in America, and all the way to the right, don't give a fuck about the Houthis. They don't give a fuck about Yemen. They don't give a fuck. They like that's where I think the angle, like if we're really gonna do this angle and we're really playing in this game, playing in this mud, like that's the angle that you could look at it, where it's like nobody really cares from a tactical standpoint what we do to the Houthis. Right, like nobody who
the fact that
is
it's
to the
the
right of me
Houthis is
gives a
just you're right, but that's tangential to the reason why everyone seems to have a problem
it's
with
important.
this.
It's important
Why?
because what happens is in the Trump administration, from like the right side, the right argument would be like, sure, it's a leak, but it's the fucking Houthis, bro. Like sure, it could have been bad that it happened. Like all the security concerns are there. Like the liberal argument that you're mentioning about the concerns of national security.
Yeah,
the concerns
to our servicemen, which I guarantee you Americans care about. Right? Our pilots and stuff. If our pilots had gotten shot, if a pilot had gotten shot down by the Houthis, right? If one of our planes had been hit by the Houthis, and then later it was confirmed, right, that the reason that this was hit is because the information had been released, this private classified information. If Jeffrey Goldberg or whoever was in the chat had released and sent this to the Houthis, and they were able to use that information to shoot down a plane, you bet your bottom dollar the American public would give a shit. Right?
Yeah, I listen. I know the arguments. I know the argument. I understand that part. I understand the liberal argument of why there should be outrage. I get it. But the thing that like I think the Trump administration clearly understands is that they can run and hide behind the fact that it's the Houthis. Now, granted, this would be very, very different if there was a situation, like let's say for the sake of argument, that all the conditions happened, but the conditions were under some type of ground offense or counter offense in Gaza against Hamas. Now, America's not involved like that, obviously. But I'm saying that like if those were the type of war plans that existed, there'd be a much different how do we say archaeology into the war plans. Because that I think reveals much more to people and could be something that not only broader left people could use for their argumentation, but also like Democrats like yourself. Because then you can use, depending on how you feel about the war in Gaza, is that you can use that as a means of like this is the extent that the American government is going to go against these people. We ought to know more about the details of these things.
Sure.
I don't think that exists here because again, I don't think people give a shit about the Houthis like that. But I think that if you were to make the argument, I think there's something to that. I think there's something to the fact that this is a person who doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. So we'll just play a game of chicken and then see what he does with it.
I just find
because
that
he's not going to leak the text. Like anybody else, I think in that position would probably leaked it already and been like, "Have fun."
Not any credible journalist, in my opinion. But we disagree on that. But go
for it.
If I may,
we can agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, fair enough. But I think the more important point here is that this idea that this was done as a purposeful op against Goldberg beggars belief. I find it unreasonable.
I mean, Stephen Miller's crazy, so
I find it unreasonable the idea that Mike Waltz.
It's unreasonable to think that the Trump administration would bait a journalist into an article.
Not in that manner.
You sure about that?
Absolutely sure about that. I am certain that they would never that they would never do this in the manner that they have done. That this, I would bet every penny I have that this was not done as a purposeful op. Yeah, what even would you get out of it? There would be nothing to gain here. There's nothing to gain.
I think there is. Again,
explain, sell me on this, because I'm.
Yeah, no. We just talked about it. Like I'm trying to make the argument here that Jeff Goldberg. I keep saying Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldberg is not exactly a journalist for journalist's sake. He is a journalist who is the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. He is not.
He gets paid, yes.
He's not. No, I'm not saying paid, but he's not like a low level. He's not a journalist like say like. He's not a Chris Hedges when he was working at the New York Times as a war correspondent. He's not a Jack Spear from NPR or Nori Ram. These are not like she's not a low level individual. He's not a low level individual within these news syndicates. He's at the top. So he's going to have to do these things at a certain slant angle. Like, let's say there was something that was absolutely abhorrent that was found in those documents. I don't think he'd release it. I don't believe that he for the sake of the broader public of information and knowledge about the things that the United States government does, if there was something heinous in that group chat, I don't believe that he would release it. Yeah. And that to me is cowardly.
Okay. Well,
I'm coming to that conclusion based on his previous body of work. It's not some magical like, oh, he's just coming out of nowhere from this story. No, this is a man who has a history, has a hate bone over Donald Trump. But I don't believe that he has a journalistic integrity to actually put something out there for the sake of the better knowledge of the public.
We do got
a story.
Yeah, we do got to wrap it up a little bit, right? Because I do have
no good. It's like, I think he had a story, sat on it, and then use it as a way to brand the Atlantic.
Okay. What I would say, right, in closing here, for our conversation at least, is that I think that if they wanted to discredit the Atlantic, there were far less convoluted and far simpler and far more effective ways to do so. I think it beggars belief that this would be a purposeful op. It exposes them to so much. We even have some right-wingers. Even Rob Noor is calling this shit out, right, as gross, as negligent, and things like that. I think that there's a very real risk that someone's going to lose their job over this, and I hope that they do. I think they should resign, right? But I think that, like, at the end of the day, Jeffrey Goldberg, nothing that he has put out in the story comes off as false to me. I think that, again, the details that he has released has been verified by the White House themselves, and I think that stands to his credibility in this statement. His previous reporting has been accurate, right? The Russian, the two stories that I'm aware of off the top of my head that people have a lot of problems with him is the suckers and losers comment. General Mark Kelly confirmed that, right? It's not just him that reported on it. General Mark Kelly confirmed that. And then we also had the Russian paying for putting bounties on American soldiers.
Don't forget the Arab Spring. That shit was bad.
Well, I'm not as familiar with that story, but so I'm using the ones I am. So he did break the story as well on the Russian bounties against American soldiers. That has since been confirmed, right? It was doubted for a while, but we have since corroborated that information. We know it's true, right? So he has a good track record of honesty here that I know a lot of MAGAs won't believe, right? But for me, it's enough. And again, I think that this was well done. He did this correctly, and that's what I have to say. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
Wait, hold on. So you don't know that story about
the Arab Spring?
The Arab Spring?
You're gonna have to refresh my memory, brother.
Oh man. Oh man, you should look it up. What the fuck was it called?
Link it to me.
I think it was called Monarch in the Middle. God.
But Arab Spring was like in 2011.
Yeah, it's a deep cut. Deep cut for
yeah, so it was a while ago, man. So if it's over a decade ago, I probably don't have instant recall off the top of my head. Right, but
he said the one that sticks out to me the most. Apparently he got because again, I'm anti-imperialist, so I love this shit. I think it's funny as fuck. So whatever. But he basically said, this is King Abdullah, by the way. He said that Erdogan views democracy like a bus ride, and once he gets to a stop, he's getting off. It's like, damn.
Oh yeah.
Which honestly might not be wrong.
I mean, was that incorrect?
But again, like that's the thing that the thing with Jeff is if you're just gonna, how do I say this in a way that's like makes sense because your community is full of gooners.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of gooners in your community.
Probably
I'm sorry,
true.
friend. If you're gonna show pasties, you might as well just show the tits at that point. And Jeff has a history of just showing pasties all the time. And for some people like pasties. You're obviously a pasties enjoyer, based upon the argumentation that you're making. But some people want to see the tits. Want to see a whole tit. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people want to see all the tits.
Oh.
And he has them. He can share them at any time.
Well, Joe, thanks for calling in. I'll talk to you
Hey,
later.
listen,
okay, man?
I'll talk. Yeah, I have nothing to plug. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you in
See ya.
Discord chat.
Bye.
Yep.
I don't know, gang. I don't know what to say to that. The idea... I said this to Joe. I'll repeat it, though. The idea that this was a purposeful op against Jeffrey Goldberg is wild to me. I see no... I would bet, again, every cent I have in my bank account, okay, against that. If anyone wants to take me up on that, contact me, please. I have no idea how we would confirm this, right? But I would absolutely bet every penny I owned against the fact that this was some sort of purposeful sting operation or some sort of purposeful op either by the administration at large or by Mike Waltz in specific. The only thing that even from that angle on this was done purposely, the only angle that even makes sense from, to me, is if Mike Waltz was a traitor to the Trump administration and wanted to fuck them all, right? And knew this was happening. And I could see the argument there, but even then I give that like less than a 1% chance of being true. Okay? Less than a 1% chance. It's remarkably low. Again, the idea also that Jeffrey Goldberg isn't a serious journalist because he didn't publish it right away, immediately, beggars belief to me. Due diligence is a thing. I would rather measure twice, cut once, gang. Right? Take the time you need to be accurate before releasing information. That's good. That's good practice. That's good journalistic practice. Take the time to gather the information correctly, to present it correctly, to get statements from all involved, or at least offer them the opportunity to make the statements. Get corroboration from other sources if you need it, depending on what you're releasing and things like that. I think it speaks well of him that he did not release it the day of, right away, that he instead did his due diligence, gathered the information, and released it as he did. I think it speaks well of him. I respect him more as a journalist than I did before. Yeah. Okay, gang. Woo! It's been a day. Tomorrow, gang, I'll see you, 6 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. Bye-bye, everyone. Wait, bye-bye. Talk to you guys.